Hello everybody and welcome to a video that almost every single Dead by Daylight YouTuber is gonna make once in their life, and it's a Dead by Daylight killer tier list. You know the drill. Sound the alarms. It's a tier list, basic YouTuber stuff. We're gonna get right into it. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm not gonna get into too much detail. I wrote a script for this video and then I realized that it just wasn't the way I wanted it to be. I just want my raw stupidity and my raw opinions and thoughts. So yeah, if I stutter or stumble, I don't have a script for this video, I'm just going in and just rambling. Alright, here we go. We're going to start in order. First off, we got Trapper. And we know our poor boy's going in D. Everybody has him in D. He's like known to be the worst killer in the game. I think he's not too bad, especially if like one person gets stuck in your trap and you can like capitalize on that. Depending on the group of survivors, they're going to like throw the game worrying about one another and like, oh no, the traps, we got to be extra careful now because we're stupid enough to step into them. So yeah, Trapper's definitely D though, even though I love the poor bastard. Next we have Wraith. I'm going to put Wraith. I'm going to say C tier for now. I feel like he's pretty good, definitely better than Trapper. You can cloak and that's it, but he can break stuff pretty fast when he's cloaked, like kick gens, break pallets. But it takes a couple seconds for him to like bing, bong, bong, and like get out of his like cloaked status, his invisibility. And it takes a little bit for him to go and hit people. But other than that, you know, he's solid, but definitely there are better killers. Next we have Hillbilly. And I guess we're just doing a little trail up the tier list here. I think Hillbilly is fine. He's annoying. I don't like him very much. Every time I go against them, they always catch me off guard at like the worst freaking time, like right at me, and I'm out in the open with no pallets or vaults or anything, and I just get my ass handed to me. He has a perk called Tinkerer, which I believe, now I brushed up on all the perks when I was writing my script for the original video, and he has a perk called Tinkerer, which I believe it's like once a generator's at like 70%, gets a little noise, he goes, alright, undetectable now, you ain't gonna hear nothing, and then he heads our way and beats our ass. So yeah, that perk alone is pretty solid. Hillbilly has the ability to one-shot. Any killer that has the ability to one-shot is pretty solid in my book. And next we have Nurse. She's going at the top. She is going at the top. Everybody has her at the top, and it's justifiable. If you go up against like just a decent Nurse, odds are you're gonna get your ass whooped. Now a bad Nurse, someone who's just learning Nurse, oh, they're gonna shit the bed. I know when I first played Nurse, I hated it. I'm like, wow, she's so slow. Wow, it's not going where I'm actually trying to warp to. But with add-ons and stuff like that, it gets a little bit easier to play her, and plus if you just get used to her. Nurse's Calling seems like a pretty good perk, you know, if people are healing, you can go and mess with them. So yeah, Nurse is definitely S tier. And now we have Michael Myers. I'm putting Michael Myers above Trapper, if he'll go above Trapper. Alright, there we go. Thank you, Trapper. Michael Myers is a basic, just stabby killer. He has the ability to stalk survivors and like build up a little stalking gauge or whatever. And if he stalks enough, then he'll get to like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And he's able to one-shot you at like tier 2. I know his perks are all like obsession related, which you wouldn't catch me using any of those. Which if you like those, that's fine. That's perfectly cool. You know, everybody likes their own perks for their killer builds, but I would never use any of them personally. If you catch people off guard, then that's gonna be great in your favor. But if the group of survivors you're going against are pretty knowledgeable, like, oh, it's Michael, everybody keep your eyes and ears open, then tough luck, bud. Next we have Hag, and I hear a lot of people like call Hag annoying. I don't know if it's like annoying to play or annoying to go against. I'm gonna put her in A. I just started playing Hag. I just got her because the Halloween event going on. I like the swamp creature skin. Looks pretty cool, so I bought her. I played a few games with her. She's pretty fun to play. You can lay traps around the map, teleport to them if you're in the area, you know, once the survivor sets them off. And there's some Hags where when you go against them, they set like 800 traps near a hook survivor, and that's annoying as hell. Hag's perks are all hex related. You have Devour Hope, which is token based, where if you get 2 tokens, you get a little bit of haste after hooking somebody. I think like 3 tokens, everybody's exposed. And 5 tokens, I believe you just like straight up Mori and kill whoever the heck you want at that point. So Hag's perks are pretty solid just for Devour Hope alone, plus the one that covers gens I'm pretty sure is alright. Sorry if I'm not getting like too technical and too in-depth. I would make this video better, but I was planning to release this video about half a week ago, and I've been just caught up with doing stuff, so my apologies. I just want to get this video out. For the past like month and a half or so, I've just really wanted to do a tier list, so, you know, I'm gonna do it. But yeah, Hag's a solid A. Now here we have Doctor. I think Doctor is pretty okay. I have played him a lot recently. He's one of like the top 3 killers I play, but I'm gonna have to put him in C, definitely above Wraith. He has the ability to like shock you. He has little short range shocks that prevent you from doing things, such as like throwing a pallet down if you time it right, vaulting if you time it right. You know, you just gotta manage that little shock well. But then he has a big shock that it takes 60 seconds to recharge, and it can reveal people in the area. I'm not sure how big the radius is, but I believe it's just in his terror radius, so that's pretty useful. Doctor Shocks are pretty useful, but like I was saying, the short one, you can repeatedly do it. He's probably in the top 5 killers that are like most annoying to go against. He has a perk that makes generators insanely like annoying to do, where they just drain really fast and they give you a super hard skill check that half the time a survivor's gonna fail it, especially if it catches them off guard. But other than that, there's not much to Doctor. He's annoying, but he's only annoying if he just spams his ability over and over again, or if whoever is playing him is just really good at Doctor. But yeah, definitely, I'd say top of C. We'll probably fill up that C category more as we go on. Now here we have Huntress. I would say Huntress is a B. I'm gonna put her above Hillbilly, because Hillbilly can one-shot you, and he revs up his chainsaw. It has to recharge and like overheat or whatever the hell that's all about. I've only played 1 game with him, but we're not talking about Hillbilly. We're talking about Huntress. Huntress can just chuck hatchets at you from like a mile away. If she sees you and she can land that hatchet shot, your ass is grass, especially if their aim is on point. I personally think her perks are crap. I'm not gonna even make a case for them. Now you can divide Huntress into like 2 categories. I'd say Huntress, if it's a good Huntress, maybe top of B, middle of B or so. If it's a bad Huntress, bottom of C. But most of the time, it's a pretty solid Huntress that can hit like 75% of her hatchet shots. But yeah, like I said, her perks are bad. I see a lot of people put her in like the top 10 killers in the game. I wouldn't go that far personally, but hey, if you think so, it's good for you. If you're in short range of her and she just lands 2 hatchet shots on you, like within 10 seconds, that's pretty like fast for knocking somebody. She's really good at countering loops, but like I said, it really depends on how good you are with your aim and just with Huntress in general. Next, we have Big Bubba. I'm gonna put him right next to his little cracked out cousin, Hillbilly. Leatherface is a fine killer. He's really annoying, just like right next to Hillbilly. They're basically very similar killers, except I think Bubba has like much better perks. Barbecue Chili, Franklin's Demise, even Knockout. When most people think of camping when it comes to Dead by Daylight, I think Bubba comes to their mind first. You know, you got Basement Bubba. You have people that just love to camp as him because that's just the killer he is, I guess. I've been camped by him several times and it's not very fun. I'd say you'd probably put Hillbilly above Bubba. Depends on what kind of killer you're looking for. You got Super Speedy Chainsaw Boy that can one-shot you, or Super Not So Speedy Chainsaw Boy that just follows you around and doesn't seem to ever run out of fuel for that goddamn chainsaw. Now we have Nightmare, my favorite horror movie icon, Freddy Krueger, but sadly, in-game wise, I'm gonna put him under Michael, but over Trapper. Now, there was a time when people said Freddy Krueger was super good, but I wasn't playing around that time. I started playing only like a year and a half ago at like longest. So I don't truly know how good he was. But then apparently a freaking nuke or something got dropped on him and he hasn't been the same since. I know he has a pretty good reach with his finger knives melee attack. His perks are okay, I guess. Maybe Blood Warden's pretty good, but other than that, I wouldn't say they're useful. He's probably the killer I'm most unfamiliar with because I don't know too much about him in general. Plus, he's like probably in the 5 killers I go against the least. So I'm gonna base my opinion off everybody else's judgment and just what I've seen myself and put him in the middle of D. Now next we have Pig. I'm gonna put her maybe under Doctor, maybe above Doctor? Maybe under Doctor. I think Pig is slightly underrated. She has the ability to make the survivors stress the F out when she puts a trap on their head. She can only put 1 trap on a survivor's head like once that whole game, but if they have terrible luck or they just wait too long, that trap's just gonna get them killed and less work for her to do. She's a pretty stealthy killer too, because when she crouch walks, she is slower, but she can get the jump on an unexpected survivor. The only thing that really damages her stealth ability is that when you're a survivor walking around the map, if you see the silly little Billy puppet resting on a jigsaw box, you know that, you know, you're going against Pig. I've heard some people say that she's pretty hard to play, and I'm actually interested in getting to play as her because she might be the first licensed killer that I buy, so maybe I'll get more info on her at that point. Her perks are pretty good. I know she has Surveillance, which is if a generator that you've kicked starts getting worked on again, you're like, I'm coming back to you. Then she has a perk called, I think it's Make Your Choice, and where if somebody unhooks a survivor, they're both exposed and you can either tunnel the survivor you just hooked or go after some fresh blood. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, which I'm sure if this video does somehow get a bunch of views or whatnot, I'm gonna have some comments being like, hey, that's not right, or hey, you're wrong. Which is fine, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm more of a casual Dead by Daylight gamer myself, but I do play it quite a bit, so I'm just basing this off all the knowledge I've gathered over the past year of playing the game. Next we have Clown, and oh boy, I was really excited for Clown. I went against one Clown that had certain add-ons on his bottles where it just like effed me up so hard. Like he'd throw it at me, I'd be like, ow, that's a nasty bottle, then boom, insta-knock me. Just unfortunate game with the Clown. So from that day on, I was like, I'm gonna get Clown and I'm gonna ruin people's day. And I bought him, and then I read up on his abilities, and I was kind of disappointed. Firstly, you have two different kinds of bottles. You got one that slows them down or does some kind of damage to them, and then one that boosts you up or gets rid of their effects, which, why the hell would you want to potentially help the survivors? You're trying to kill them. Secondly, his bottles are only good if, like, the right add-ons are put on, or if you're pretty strategic with how you place them. Now, I'm sure I'm missing a big picture here, and if you're a Clown main or just really good with Clown, you're probably like, well, you could do this and that and this and that, and I'm happy for you. I've only played him a handful of times, and I just don't think he's really worth my while, at least for now. Maybe I'll try him again in the future. But yeah, if you're a Clown main or you enjoy Clown, I'm happy for you. He was just kind of disappointing to me, and also I don't think he's truly that good. He does have some pretty solid perks like Pop Goes the Weasel and Bamboozle, so you know, he can have that. And here we have Spirit. Spirit is definitely gonna be in probably S tier, maybe bottom of S tier, because I've played her quite a bit. She was like the third killer I ever like main. She has the ability to phase into invisibility and just like super speed wherever she thinks a survivor may be. You can tell by like grass if it's moving, or you can tell by some scratch marks wherever they're going. Also by sound if a survivor's like grunting. So she's a pretty good killer to like counter loops and also get chases down and out of the way. Her perks are pretty good. You got Rancor, which if you're having a bad time and you're not really getting much done, when the exit gates are ready to be open, your obsession is gonna have a very rough time if you find them. Or you could just knock them instantly and Morium. That's my go-to perk if I've been having a rough game and I just want to make somebody's day even worse than mine. She also has a Hex perk where if you cleanse the totem, the whole survivor team is exposed for 60 seconds. A good strategy for that perk that I've been trying recently is put that Hex perk on with another Hex perk that's kind of annoying. That way it forces survivors to cleanse at least one of the Hex totems, and if they cleanse the wrong one, they're gonna be exposed for trying to fix their game. She also has a perk where if she breaks 2 or 3 pallets, the next pallet dropped on her immediately breaks. I think that one's fine. I still feel like it's not that great since she still kind of gets stunned by it. But overall, Spirit is definitely S tier. Not nearly as crazy as Nurse, but she can definitely take control of a chase or a loop. Next we have Legion. I'm going to put him above Doctor. He is pretty situational. He has a little special attack called Feral Frenzy where if he stabs somebody, he can see the heartbeats of other survivors that are nearby. He can run really fast and vault over vaults and slide over pallets, the whole shebang, and it's pretty good. But if you get stunned during Feral Frenzy or even just simply miss an attack, you get for like freaking 2 seconds and it wastes a little bit of your time. Plus if you use your Feral Frenzy on one survivor and nobody else is around, it's kind of useless unless you run around and hopefully find somebody. However, Feral Frenzy can be pretty powerful. If you stab everybody at least once, the next person you stab is going to instantly go down instead of just having to go mend themselves. Which that's another thing with Legion. Everybody's going to have to mend over and over again if you get a real pesky Legion. Legion was probably the second killer I mained if I remember correctly, right after Trapper and right before Spirit. He has a perk called Discordance where if 2 or more people are on a generator, it highlights in yellow, and I use that for almost every one of my killer builds. There's also another perk called Iron Maiden, where if they get out of a locker, they scream and they're exposed for a bit, which I think is pretty good, but I just never personally use it myself. So yeah, I'd say Legion's a pretty good killer, but he's gonna rest nicely at the top of C. And now we have Plague, the Queen of Vomit herself. I'm gonna put her top of A above Hag because it seems like every time I go against her, now I solo queue quite a bit, so it's probably on me and my other teammates, but she seems so annoying to try and counter. If you cleanse yourself with the little fountains, I think like her power grows or some crap like that. I don't know. She's another killer. I'm not for sure completely how she works. But if you don't cleanse yourself, then you're left on broken status the whole game and you're just one shot next time she decides to fuck with you. If the Princess of Puke finds like some special fountain or some crap, she can actually do damage with her vomit. Usually when she vomits on you, which can go pretty far I might add, you just get all stinky smelly with leftover Taco Bell on top of you and a little vomit meter builds up on the side of your screen. Once you're full of vomit, you're left with broken status until you cleanse yourself like I mentioned earlier. About 90% of my games against Plague don't really go as planned, but I think that's what makes the ultimate upchucker so good. She has a perk which I believe is called Corrupt Intervention, and every freaking killer, or almost every freaking killer I go against, god dang uses it, where the generators that are furthest away from the killer get covered for like 2 minutes, I believe. That's 3 generators that I spawn right next to that I can't even touch, so I gotta walk halfway across the map to find another one. She can vomit on a lot of things like people, generators, and vaults, so if you come across those things, you're gonna get infected with the little vomit yourself. A killer I haven't yet cracked the code on, but I guarantee you I'm not the only one having having issues with her. Up next, we have Ghostface, and I'm gonna put him right behind Legion. Ghostface is another stealthy killer like Pig and Michael Myers. Ghostface has the ability to crouch and stalk people, and if he stalks you for long enough, you're gonna become exposed. He can also crouch and peek behind corners because he thinks this is Rainbow Six Siege or some shit. But a survivor can counter that if they look at him for a few seconds and expose him. While I think he's about the same as Michael Myers, he's definitely a tier above because he can do a couple little different things, plus I think his perks are better. There's Thrilling Tremors, which when you pick up a survivor, gens that aren't being worked on get covered by the entity. Also there's I'm All Ears, which I think is also a pretty decent perk in the right circumstances. So I think Ghostface fits nicely right behind Legion in C. Next we have Demogorgon, and he's a pretty tricky one to put on this list. I might shift people around after I'm done talking about everybody, but for now I'm going to put him bottom of B because I think he can be pretty good. You're not able to get Demogorgon anymore, so they threw his perks into the wild for anybody to get their hands on. One of the perks that he used to have is what we now know as Jolt, which is a pretty good perk where if you knock a survivor, any generators nearby will blow up. One of his special abilities is like a dash, which if you're paying attention, you can probably predict when he's gonna do it. But from what I've experienced, the hitbox is a little janky, so odds are he'll still hit you anyway. He also can place about 5 portals around the map. If you place the portals in popular areas of the map or by generators, then you might have the game in the bag right there. Survivors can get rid of your portals though. One of them can get rid of it in about 12 seconds, but if teamwork makes the dream work, they can get rid of it in less time. I think Demogorgon's pretty alright overall. It just really depends on who's playing him and if they're good or if they're bad or if they're strategic or not. So right now I'm going to put him in B, but I don't doubt that I'll put him in high C before this list is over. Next we have Oni, and I personally don't know too much about Oni, but I know a lot of people put him in A. I know he has the ability to just run around after he gets enough blood orbs and rah, and just throw a little temper tantrum and knock your ass in about a couple seconds if he catches ya. I'm gonna put him at the bottom of A for right now, but that's just based off what I've seen. In my opinion, Oni's perks aren't all that great. There's a perk where I believe you can see all like the vaults and pallets in the nearby area, and I guess that's a decent informational perk, but I would probably not use it myself. One thing I have noticed though is that whenever he's fully charged with his blood orbs, he's able to run and one-shot you with this giant baseball bat looking thing, and he seems not too hard to control. Whereas somebody like Hillbilly, who can rev up a chainsaw and one-shot you, is a little bit trickier to control than Oni is. So that's why I think Oni has a slight advantage on somebody like Hillbilly. And that's where I stand with Oni. Not too much because I'm not really sure about him. So I'll keep him bottom of A because he has the potential to F you up. Next we have Deathslinger, and I'm going to put him top of B. I don't think anybody's taken his spot as the champion of the B tier. His perks are pretty good. His ability, if your aim is right, just like Huntress, is also pretty good. His ability is a harpoon type rifle, where if he shoots it at you, you get a harpoon right through the chest and you gotta struggle to get away from him. It's a great ability that puts a survivor in an injured state and also wastes their time a little bit. Although Deathslinger walks a little slow and it takes a little while for his rifle to reload, if he can hit your shots, then I'd say you're good to go. Especially since he can shoot his little rifle through little holes and cracks in the map, and also above some of the lower walls and loops. I think Deathslinger has some of the best overall perks in the game, especially Dead Man's Switch and Gearhead. A part of me feels like he could go very bottom of A, but just like Huntress, depending on your aim, he's either going to be a pretty good killer or a not so great killer. Next we have Pyramid Head, and I'm going to put him either under Hag or over Hag, definitely not better than Plague. He has a lot of tools at his disposal, so I'm gonna say I'm gonna keep him above Hag, but I think Hag and Pyramid Head could both be interchangeable. Pyramid Head can do quite a few things in Dead by Daylight. First off, he has a giant freaking sword, no, not like that he can swing around and just freaking knock survivors on their ass. With that sword, he can create a trail of barbed wire which can cut off exits or entries into certain buildings or loops, which if you step in it, you can get a barbed wire effect. If you have the barbed wire effect on you, whenever you get knocked, he can send you not to a hook, but to a bad boy cage since you deserve to go on timeout. The cage though acts like a hook, so it's like he doesn't have to carry you around. Also, if he knocks you again and you're still covered in barbed wire, he can mini-more you. And then he has another ability which is super useful when it comes to pallets and vaulting windows, or just loops where you can predict where the guy's gonna go. He also has an ability where he can send a somewhat lengthy red bar of death towards you. And if he times it right, if you're on it, it's gonna do damage. Pyramid Head has some okay perks, but the main reason he's an A is for all the ways he can kick your ass in a match. Next we have Blight, and while I think him and Nurse are somewhat neck and neck, I feel like he's just an inch below Nurse. Blight has the ability to run supersonic fast, and if he bumps into a wall, he's allowed to hit you on his next dash. And it's not like it has a very long cooldown or anything like that, because he can almost constantly inject himself with his little steroid syringe and keep going super speed whenever he damn well pleases. He's annoying as hell in chases, and it seems like his hitbox is also slightly weird as well. Because there's so many times where it seems I find myself saying like, hey, how the hell did that hit? Or, what? So like I said, he's a big pain in the ass. He has one hex perk where if someone gets hit, all the vaults and pallets and whatnot nearby are just blocked off and they're not able to use them. So that means your ways of juking that super fast boy have gone down to 0. But yeah, that's where I stand on Blight. Just as annoying as Bubba or Hillbilly, but way harder to counter. Next we have twins, and they're probably my favorite killers in the game. It's just how different they are compared to the rest of the killers. Though sadly you don't see too many of them, and there's a pretty good reason why. I feel like they're a bit tricky to learn, but if you can learn them, they're pretty good. I'm gonna put twins at the top of C. Come on, Legion, don't be so stubborn. Yeah, I'm going to put twins at top of C, because if you're a strategic player, they can be very good, but for someone who's probably more casual, they're going to be just used for fun and not for, like, just gunning survivors down. The twins you can play as 2 different people. You have the little guy, Victor, and you have his sister, Charlotte. Charlotte is your basic M1 killer, can't do anything super special, but Victor, he's a specimen. This guy can run at 500 miles an hour. He can also dash at you, even though he has pretty small legs. He can freaking jump like he has the legs of a horse. The wombo combo for the twins is where Victor is sent out and he runs and he latches onto somebody's head. It immediately switches you back to Charlotte and you just go beat their ass to the ground. So if you can successfully do that over and over again, you're gonna have a pretty easy game. But survivors can kick poor little Victor and send him off the field for a couple of seconds. One thing about the twins that I do like is that you can leave one idle and like body block a certain vault or like a part of a loop. Which goes back to what I said, where if you're a strategic killer, the twins can do wonders for you. I don't know much about the twins add-ons or certain patterns that twins players use because you don't see them too often. I can tell you about their perks, however. Their perks, not that great. They do have one solid perk, however, called Oppression, where if they kick a generator, 3 other generators start regressing, which I think is pretty good. And if somebody's on it, they get a difficult skill check, which like I mentioned back with Doctor, most survivors tend to fail those. Twins is another one of those killers where it really depends on who's playing them and what their strategy is going into the game. Up next we have Trickster, and he's definitely in the top 5 most annoying killers to go against. He falls right with Bubba and Hillbilly, where I hate this motherfucker so much. And just like Bubba and Billy, he's going in B tier, and right above Bubba, only because he can throw little icicles. Yes, I know they're knives, but when he's throwing them, they kind of look like little icicles. But when he's throwing them, they can just freaking annoy the piss out of you. If you land 6 of them, it does damage. And just the feeling of every little one hitting you is just such a painful feeling. He also has something called main event or whatever the hell, and once his main event meter is filled up, he can just chuck a whole bunch of knives at you like nobody's business, and you just want to crawl into a corner and cry. I have him 1 slot under Huntress though, because you gotta land 6 of them to do damage instead of just 1 singular throw. But I do think he's definitely more annoying than Huntress. If you have at least 4 brain cells in that noggin of yours, you're gonna be able to do some damage with Trickster. It's almost impossible to at least not injure somebody with him. And when I say it's impossible to not do damage, it is impossible to not do damage. I don't know how you could. He has 40 freaking blades he can throw, for crying out loud. He's an annoying ass killer to go against who also has some annoying ass perks. He has Starstruck, which just like Corrupt Intervention, almost every killer I go against decides to put that on their killer, where if he picks somebody up and you're in their terror radius, uh-oh, you're exposed. He also has an endgame perk called No One Escapes, where depending on how many tokens he has, the exit gate switches could be blocked for up to 60 seconds, which makes the endgame for survivors very freaking stressful. I might not like the guy, but I have to admit he is a pretty good killer. And Trickster mains out there, if you're watching this, I don't hate you, I just hate him. So here we have Thanos, and I know his name's not Thanos, it's Nemesis, but look at the motherfucker. He looks like Thanos if he was a zombie. Nemesis is probably gonna be, I don't even know. Maybe behind Huntress, like 1 little bit behind Huntress. I think that's a good spot for him for now. Because he has a lot of things he can do, but one of those things is zombies can either be really useful or really just, you know, zombies, freaking brain dead. Sometimes they get stuck on generators, sometimes they just don't benefit you at all whatsoever. You can kill them, however, in order to tear up your little whip. Speaking of his whip, he has a tentacle whip that he can whoop-ha right at you, either over a pallet or over a small wall or through a window. You do have to time it pretty well, but for the most part, you're gonna get hit by it. There's different stages to his little whip tentacle thing. When he gets to tier 3, his whip has a little bit more range to it. If you get hit by a zombie or his whip, you get covered in blue Gatorade, and you gotta give yourself a little vaccination if you want to get rid of your sickness, which if you're not in that thing, that's fine. Just, you know, have fun coughing for 8 hours. Zombie Thanos can be pretty powerful. Eruption and Lethal Pursuer seem like pretty decent perks, but overall I'd say he's a pretty middle of the road killer. So yeah, high B he goes, kinda middle B. Next we have Pinhead, Pain or Pleasure, and he's a pain in the ass to deal with because he has so many chains. At a certain period of time when the Lament configuration is ready to be played with or whatever, some chains just come flying out of nowhere and just prevent you from doing your typical survivor duties. I put Pinhead in A because just like Pyramid Head, he has a lot of ways to mess with you in the match. Plus his perks ain't too bad either. And you know what, because I like his perks better than Oni, and I think he's kind of in line with Pyramid Head, I'm gonna move him above Oni. Sorry Oni lovers. Oni's at the back of A. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Pinhead has something that no other killer in the game has, where every survivor is doing something at once to prevent them from doing generators or any other tasks they might need to do. Like I said before, when the Lament configuration is ready to be played with, chains just come flying at you, and you gotta get them off of you one by one, but they just keep coming and they don't stop. One survivor has to be brave enough to go play with the box, and Pinhead can just teleport right in the area whenever he feels like it. He also has an ability where he can launch a chain at somebody, but it's another one of those little Huntress Nemesis situations where you gotta aim it right and time it right. If it does land, it's just like all the other chains where you gotta pick it off of you and get it out and run away. But it does slow you down, so good luck and you better hope he's not right behind you. We're speeding through this thing. We got Artist. I think Artist and Spirit, just like Blight and Nurse, are interchangeable, but I do think Artist is just one little step above Spirit. Artist can use her crows that she can throw around to find out what those pesky little survivors are up to. She can throw them at gens and popular areas of the map where people just seem to keep going to heal or whatnot, and also she can leave them just sitting there. So if you're ever with a survivor that's loving a certain palette they just don't want to leave, put a crow there and then they're gonna have no choice but to bump into it or to move on. As sort of an Artist main who hasn't lost a single game with her, yes, I'm asking you to clap for me. Maybe it's favoritism, maybe it's not. I do think she's pretty good. Her perks are also pretty good, especially her Scourge Hook perk, where if you put a survivor on a Scourge Hook, the generator that's been repaired the most just blows up in their faces, and it's very funny. Her other perks, Hex Pentimento and Grim Embrace, are pretty situational, but if the stars align, you're gonna have a pretty good game. Next we have Sadako, and I've heard a lot of people say not so good things about her, and I can understand it. She seems like she's pretty good. She can fizzle out of invisibility and whatnot, she can teleport around the map, has good mobility in that kind of way, but if survivors block her TV or just know it's her and know where to stay away, then I don't think she's that great. I'm not gonna put her in D, I'm gonna put her somewhere in C. Where could she be in C? It's probably gonna be under Wraith. I think she has pretty good potential, but they just need to, like, you know, adjust her powers and whatnot. And speaking of adjusting, I think I'm gonna put Demogorgon down in C, maybe under Twins. I think I'm gonna probably put him top of C though, because these two have the ability to one hit fairly easily. This guy, I'm sorry Demogorgon, I love you. But yeah, moving back to Sadako, I don't know too much about Sadako other than the things I've said, so it's another Freddy Krueger situation where I'm basing off of what I've seen through other people. There is one perk she has that's called Call of Brine, which again goes in the category of I think every killer I go against freaking uses this son of a bitch. But yeah, she's not all too great, so bottom of C she goes. Next we have my current main killer I play non-stop, and that's gonna be my Dredgy Poo, Little Mr. Dredgington. Dredge. We love Dredge in this household. If I had my way and I was just showing brutal favoritism, I would put him probably about maybe top of A or just right under Plague. But I'm gonna be realistic here, and I think he is under Pyramid Head. I still think he's pretty good. You know, my favoritism can only take him so far, because he is what he is. He's a killer that has great mobility, and that's what I look for in my killers, is great mobility where they can go around the map. Not you, Sadako. Shut up. But Dredge is definitely that mobility killer for me. He can teleport to lockers around the map, and survivors can lock the lockers in order for him to, like, you know, spend a couple extra seconds breaking out of that sumbitch, but you can just swipe them away anyway. No big deal. If survivors are really smart when they go up against Dredge, then it creates a little bit of a problem from what I've noticed. Usually mediocre to not so good survivors I can handle, but if they think, which is scary, survivors that think, you don't see those too often. But if they do think, they're gonna be a problem for Dredge. When you're about to teleport to a locker, he leaves behind a remnant. If you're chasing somebody in a loop, you can leave that remnant there, and with the click of a button, you can teleport right back to it after you walk away. So Dredge is a killer that can also counter some loops if the survivors, like I said, don't think too much. Dredge has a perk called Darkness Revealed that I used to use, but recently hasn't been working in my favor too much. But hey, when it works, it works. It's called Darkness Revealed. Whenever you check a locker, the aura of a survivor near any other lockers gets revealed, and I think that's bonkers because you could just teleport to the locker there nearby. It works beautifully. While he may not be the best of the best, I think Dredge, at least for me, is in the top 10 killers in Dead by Daylight right now. And finally, to close out this tier list, we have somebody who I put just next to Trickster and Bubba and Billy and the people that I hate the most in this game, Wesker. I think Wesker is pretty good, and I'm thinking about getting him soon because he seems pretty fun to play. I'm gonna put him right under Pinhead. He can use a certain dash from his weird tentacle arm to grab you and throw you against the wall, or just, you know, just toss you aside, and that just seems super fun. He can infect you with these little squirmy wormy things that you gotta go find a can of Febreze to get him off you. There's a little meter that if you get full of the wormies and fully infected, once he grabs you with this weird arm, I think he just plop you right on his shoulder. I'm not sure exactly, but I've gone against him so many times, and it seems that's just like the common theme. The story of why I hated Wesker so much is because on release day, I played Dead by Daylight a whole bunch. I went against him about every freaking game, and yes, I know he's a new killer, of course everybody's gonna play him. But I've been playing Dead by Daylight for a little bit now, and when I tell you I played against him a lot, I played against him a lot. When Sadako came out, Pinhead came out, Dredge came out, nobody played those guys a crap ton, at least like who I went against. Wesker? Oh my god, what a shitstorm of poor performance indeed. I kept getting over and over again. But I've grown to like Wesker, and I think he's a pretty rad dude. With his tentacle arm little dart thing, he can also rush over pallets, which I think is pretty cool. Also windows, so add that to the coolness list. Two of his perks, Awakened Awareness and Terminus, seem like they're not too shabby either. So if I ever get Wesker, I might have to try them out. But yeah, that's my final thoughts on Wesker. Looking at this tier list, we're finally done. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you agree with my rankings, that's a shocker. I can't believe you actually agree with me. But if you don't, which is the less shocking option, then let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want, list your whole tier list, or at least your top 5 killers, or whatever you want to do. Argue with me, agree with me. It's a Dead by Daylight community, baby. That's what I love about it. You never know what you're gonna get. So yeah, that's it for me. My voice is starting to feel a little bit exhausted because I've been talking and rambling for about an hour and 20 minutes now. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Like and subscribe, and I will see you for my Facing Every Killer in Dead by Daylight video, which is gonna be kind of a pain to edit, but I'm gonna do it for you. Bye-bye.